As some states and school districts scrub ugly chapters out of history, Colorado's largest school district is making sure that students cannot ignore one of the worst moments in human history. Your complaints about Xcel will lead to a formal state investigation. Leaders will announce it here tonight. And when eminent domain swept into an old neighborhood, artists came in to make a statement. At its debate night, 13 candidates will enter, and hopefully all will leave, because it's just a debate for Denver mayor, it's not Thunderdome. We're live from the campus of MSU Denver. This is Next. Welcome to the King Center on the campus of MSU Denver. Get a double batch of popcorn ready for the first televised debate in the race for Denver mayor. It is 7 o'clock tonight on KTVD and streaming on 9 News Plus. First, though, to the debate over what students are learning in school these days. While you have states like Florida that are looking to shield students from tough topics, school districts in Colorado are leaning in. For example, high school freshmen in the largest district in the state, Denver Public Schools, next year they'll be taking a course specifically on the Holocaust and genocide. Our Cole Sullivan has that.
The class will be called The History of Power, Conflict, and Healing. It's how Denver Public Schools will meet a 2020 requirement from legislators that all districts adequately teach the history of the Holocaust and other genocides.
It's important for students to understand that the capacity to become killers is something that's within all of us. It's a human capacity.
Dan Lesham helped finalize the wording of the new state standards.
It's really about what kind of humans are we going to be and what kind of people do we want to teach our young people to be.
Creating new graduation requirements across the state isn't easy, not for advocates like Dan.
I think the most important aspect of passing the standards is the work that's yet to come.
And not for the districts that implement them.
It is a change here.
3 new required classes have rearranged Denver's course catalogs.
Typically, our high school students in 9th grade would take a world history class to begin with.
Now the new class on genocide will take its place starting this fall. DPS will also add a personal finance course and a change to the existing high school health class.
The goal with our new graduation requirements is that our students leave us career and college ready and also ready to enter our community as very healthy, highly operating adults.
Dan hates the cliche, but says he believes the Holocaust class is more necessary now than ever, especially as anti-Semitism continues to rise.
And through learning about genocide and understanding the experiences of the victims, I believe that we inoculate ourselves against the possibility of becoming killers ourselves.
DPS will formally announce the new graduation requirements in the next couple of days. They're telling me they're working to make sure all their classes conform to those requirements and that students still get the chance to take AP courses and electives as well. This doesn't apply to current high school students, but will count for all freshmen starting this fall. That's the class of 2027, Kyle.
Hey, Cole, you imagine there's probably going to be some pushback from some parents or community groups on this, but that's kind of the point about learning.
And there was some pushback in the debate over these standards themselves when the Board of Education made them. There was a lot of discussion ahead of time. There'll likely be a lot more to come.
Cole, thank you so much. Hey, you got a minute? Because it literally takes a couple of minutes to meet all of the people who are running for mayor of Denver. 13 of them will be on the stage with me at MSU Denver at 7 o'clock on KTVD and on 9 News Plus. There are so many candidates in the race that our photojournalists and directors have a cheat sheet with names and faces of everybody who's going to be up here tonight in the order in which they're seated. But let's take a couple of minutes now to learn about the people who have piled into the first wide-open race for Denver mayor in 12 years. Lisa Calderon's longtime community leader who finished 3rd in Denver's last mayoral race. She runs Emerge Colorado, an organization that trains progressive women to run for political office. Trini Rodriguez is making his first run for public office after decades of experience in finance, tied to public projects, including work for the city of Denver, Denver Public Schools, and RTD. Aurelio Martinez is a former boxer, now CEO of the publication Inside Boxing. He's a community organizer who says the city needs to prioritize residents and neighborhood organizations over the needs of developers. Investment banker Thomas Wolf is making his second run for Denver mayor, essentially a single-issue candidate focused on clearing homeless encampments. Terrence Roberts is a former gang member turned anti-violence organizer in Denver's Park Hill neighborhood. He says he wants to expand public housing as a solution to the affordability crisis. Kwame Spearman is CEO of Tattered Cover Bookstores. He says he wants to be a neighborhood mayor, wants to focus on policies that work for each individual community. Chris Hansen's a Colorado State Senator with a background in the energy industry. He's worked on environmental and clean energy issues during his 8 years in the state legislature. Former State Senator Mike Johnson ran unsuccessfully for the Democratic nomination for governor in 2018 and the U.S. Senate in 2020. Most recently, he led an investment company focusing on nonprofit and private sector ways to help low-income children and families. Don't worry, we're only halfway done. James Walsh is running what he calls a student-led campaign. He's a UC Denver professor specializing in the history of labor and immigrant rights. Environmental activist Ian Tafoya is involved in several statewide environmental organizations. In November, he led a successful ballot initiative requiring commercial businesses to expand recycling and composting. State Representative Leslie Herod made history in 2016 when she became the first openly LGBTQ African-American elected to the state legislature. Throughout her time in office, she's backed progressive causes like criminal justice and mental health reform. Longtime City Councilor Debbie Ortega currently holds one of 2 at-large City Council seats. She spent a lot of her time in office focused on public works, and she's currently the chair of a nonprofit that builds affordable housing. Kelly Brough is a longtime political insider making her first run for elected office. She served as chief of staff to Denver Mayor John Hickenlooper and later as the head of the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce. 4 candidates are not participating in the city's Fair Elections Fund, and therefore they're not participating in tonight's debate in conjunction with the Fair Elections Fund. Renata Behrens is originally from Germany. She says she came to Colorado for love. This is her first run for public office. She's previously worked as a secretary, chef, and stewardess. Al Gardner is an IT executive who served on several local boards and commissions, like Denver's Citizen Oversight Board and the Civil Service Commission. Andy Rougeau is a small business owner and a former U.S. Army intelligence officer. He proudly mentions he is the only Republican in this race. He's one of many candidates promising tougher enforcement of the camping ban. And we're finally at the end of the list. Robert Treda owns and operates a construction company. He says bad development strategies have made people in Denver fall out of love with the city, and he wants to change the city's growth strategies. Whew, you still with us? I nodded off briefly. I think I was on candidate 9 or 11 or 13. You can watch the 13 candidates debate tonight on KTVD and 9 News Plus, 7 to 9 o'clock. Remember to flip over from 9 News. The debate will be held in conjunction with MSU Denver, and Claro, and the City of Denver's Fair Elections Fund. So one really interesting thing about this particular race for public office is that unlike so many, all the candidates in this race agree on the largest issues. The only debate is about the solutions. So you got every candidate talking about homelessness. That's something we're going to spend a lot of time on tonight. Some candidates are pushing crackdowns on encampments, kind of a one-size-fits-all solution. Kathy Alderman with the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless told us that any plan, in her view, that does not include housing is simply a non-starter, and that's the way it's going to be with organizations in the city. She's going to be listening tonight as well to see if candidates are making blanket statements suggesting that anybody who is out on the streets needs either mental health counseling or drug treatment.
I would encourage candidates to be really thoughtful about how they're talking about mental health and behavioral health and our unhoused community, to make sure that those that do need those services get them, but not in a way that requires anybody who might be unhoused to engage in mental health and behavioral health services.
And I mean, that is really the crux of the issue. If this was a simple problem to solve that took just one solution, well, then Denver would have solved homelessness 20 years ago when former Mayor John Hickenlooper first pledged to do it. You have been heard. You have been heard by the state legislators about your concerns with Xcel Energy's high bills these days. They also have been hearing Marshall Zellinger's constant reporting on the issue, specifically the profit-taking that Xcel is allowed to do on the backs of ratepayers, what is and is not allowed. So now the state legislature is going to convene a special committee. And if you're thinking to yourself, hold on, a committee is what they do when they don't actually want to do anything, Marshall found out this committee might actually do something, and fairly soon.
Lawmakers have seen enough. Perhaps enough that I won't have to show video of gas meters much longer. The high bills Coloradans have experienced this winter will result in a special 6-member legislative committee to review why our bills are so high and what laws could change to affect those bills.
We're not creating a committee just to move things around and, pat ourselves on the back. This committee really is to investigate, to learn, and to chart a path forward on policy changes that can happen either this year or in the near future.
Democratic Senate President Steve Fenberg just announced the Joint Select Committee on Rising Utility Rates. 4 Democrats and 2 Republicans total from the House and Senate to meet 3 to 6 times before the legislative session ends in early May.
Why are certain types of expenses allowed to be passed on to consumers? Whether it's fuel costs or operating costs or fees, We need to get to the bottom of exactly what's led us to where we are.
We've heard from Xcel customers concerned about their bills and how Xcel makes and spends money.
It seems to be all profit.
Over the last 3 weeks, we've explained what each line on your Xcel bill is for, why it's on there, and where Xcel makes its $1.7 billion profit.
They shouldn't make exorbitant profits of what seems to be more than what other companies do.
We've helped you figure out how much you will spend turning your thermostat up 1 degree and how to do the math to figure out if your electricity is better off billed based on time of day or overall flat rate.
This one was 33% higher than it was last year. And we're already, look at how much we're paying for eggs and stuff now. So every penny counts when you're trying to keep your budget on your household.
The stories that have been coming from the news about this and doing the deeper dive on utility bills has been very helpful and has helped people understand what is and what is not causing these increased rates. And so now as policymakers, I think it's appropriate for us to look at that from a policy perspective.
These committee hearings will be open to the public. So the committee, who are they going to hear from? Utility companies, energy experts, and you, if you want to be heard, because this is how it started, because so many people were complaining about their high utility bills. But let's be real, Kyle. Even if they do something by the end of the session, which is early May, it's not going to affect your bill even by June.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the state legislature has one role to play in this process, and state regulators, as you have showed us over the last couple of weeks, they're the ones that really have their hands on the levers.
Right, so this is just policy changes so that state lawmakers would then be guiding the Public Utilities Commission. When you hear these rate cases, these are things we now want you to consider. It's not like the legislature is just going to come through and slash bills like that. They're going to guide the people who do slash bills how to do that.
All right, another one of my fellow moderators tonight, Marshall Sellinger. Thank you. Colorado's bees are dying too quickly. Environmentalists say we need to get off our stingers and do something about that. And take a look. These are homes, and they're art, and they're a political statement. And they're next. We are 45 minutes away from a baker's dozen worth of Denver mayoral candidates being up on this stage for their first live debate in the race for mayor. Colorado's pesticide regulations are about to be reviewed, and environmentalists are like, hey, are we concerned about the fact that like 3/4 of the bees are already dead by now? This is a nationwide issue, but it is a particular problem in the southern Rocky Mountains. New study says that area has been one of the worst bee declines in the country. Study says the population there has declined about 72% in the past 25 years. The study blames climate change and drought, but in particular the use of pesticides. And pesticides are obviously much more in our immediate control than, say, like climate change. So activists with Environment Colorado want a commercial ban on specific pesticides that seem to kill bees.
We've seen in recent years that urban areas have a richer abundance and greater potential for pollinators, and by getting these pesticides off store shelves and out of the hands of untrained people, we have a potential to really make these spaces just that much better.
The environmentalists are really keyed in on Colorado because I did not know this. You learn something new every day. Apparently, Colorado has the 5th most diverse bee population in America.
Who knew? Hey, I hope you enjoyed that sunshine today. Wasn't it delightful? Even though those temperatures were a bit on the cool side, nice to have all that snow yesterday and then that glorious Colorado sunshine. As far as our snowpack goes, impressive. Truly, all of the basins, with the exception of the Arkansas River Basin, looking at above average readings so far. So good. Across downtown Denver tonight, we're looking at mostly clear skies. Our storm system now long gone as this ridge of high pressure pushes back in. That's going to keep us quiet and calm and a little warmer as we look ahead toward the weekend. Tonight, we're dropping off to 4 in Greeley, 11 across the metro area, single digits, and temperatures dropping into a sub-zero territory yet again around Gunnison. High pressure hangs out with us for our Friday or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You get the drift. We still have a ways to go before that next storm system pops into the metro area. 52 on deck for us tomorrow. A little cooler off to the eastern plains with some 30s mainly up in the mountains. 7-day forecast looking good with upper 40s, low 50s for the weekend. 54 on Monday, President's Day, with our next chance of snow on Wednesday.
These houses in Denver are sitting empty. Families say they left under the threat of eminent domain. So now artists have come in to make a statement. That's next. Community advocates in Denver's Globeville, El Rio, Swansea neighborhood are mixing art and activism in a can of paint. They say that some of their neighbors were pushed out of their homes a few years ago because the city was eyeing those properties, but the houses just still sit vacant. So now the artists have come in, hoping to draw some attention to the properties and to the calls to have those houses returned to the community.
As long as people could kind of question why these buildings were painted, I think that we did our job. Right now we're in Elyria, right off of I-70 in Brighton. These two buildings are buildings that we painted with the community.
So this structure, as you can see, was 4681 Baldwin Court. It was acquired by the city for the National Western Center redevelopment around 2015 through the threat of eminent domain.
The WAS 4681 was asked to be painted on there by the previous owner of the space. I think it just lets you recognize that this was once a home, no longer.
No, you didn't want to give it up, just like all these neighbors. Nobody wanted to give up their houses.
Bringing this story to the forefront is the reason why we paint these buildings like this.
So the big idea was like, how can we give some life back to these spaces? This was a demonstration of sorts of not necessarily a reclaiming of it, because that battle has yet to be won, but just a demonstration of like what we could do if we're allowed to control our community.
I'm from this neighborhood, so I like to use my platform as much as possible to help shed light on social situations like this one right here.
Yeah, it's more than a structure. It's like people's memories. It's like people's experience. It's people's shelter. But then these shelters specifically contained, and they still do, people's memories, people's existence.
And so all these paintings are really for the people, and it's letting everybody know that drives by, the people that once lived here, and the message that they wanted to continue on for generations.
We're back to talk about tonight's debate for Denver mayor, live at 7 o'clock on KTVD and 9 News Plus. And we'll have your feedback next. We are just more than 30 minutes away from the start of the first televised debate in the race for Denver mayor. We will be live for 2 hours here at the King Center at MSU Denver. 13 of the candidates for Denver mayor will be joining us on what should be a crowded stage, but for hopefully a productive conversation. The debate will be held in conjunction with MSU Denver and Claro and the City of Denver's Fair Elections Fund. This is the first test drive for the city's public financing of elections. It was overwhelmingly approved by voters a few years ago. There are 13 candidates who have opted in for that fund. They have to debate if they do, so they will be here with us tonight. It's the first of 3 debates that we are airing on 9 News. We finish, as always, with your feedback. Chuck writes in to say, so the other 20,000 candidates have dropped out already. You're correct, Chuck. The other 20,000 have dropped out. It was 29 candidates total that filed to run for mayor. I think the largest we ever had in the race at one point was 27, but now we're down to 17 on the ballot. There will be 13 participating in the Fair Election Fund here with us tonight. Could you imagine if we had the full 27? Have to add another riser or something like that. David's curious about watching it online. Yes, the debate will stream at 7 o'clock. On 9news.com and also on the 9 News YouTube channel. And Joshua, curious if there are questions. Absolutely not. 2 hours of political goodness. It should be a ripping good time. We'll see you on KTVD and 9 News Plus. And I'll see you next time.